Good afternoon, everyone. 4 o'clock straight up. It is indeed a Tuesday edition of Middays with Q coming at you from our good friends over at Triax 57. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quiñones. 2 hours to play with on this June 17th, 2025. And we've got 2 hours to play with. As always, bring something to the table. A little mixed bag on this Tuesday down the shore. We'll get into a little baseball. Phillies, we mentioned a little bit of the struggles with the Mets and the Yankees. We'll go to the diamond in about 45 minutes. Jonathan Marshall from WMUR covers the NBA. We will talk to him in about 15. And Lloyd Vance, his weekly spot on the NFL. We will dissect the NFL today and really get into the NFC North because it's a compelling division as we kind of go through these win totals all over the place around the league. We're going to really focus on the NFC North, and we'll get you caught up to speed on some news and notes. You also have an opportunity tonight, if you are a hockey buff, hockey fan, and an opportunity for the Florida Panthers to not only close out the Edmonton Oilers and win that series in 6, but go back-to-back. So a lot to get into, and we are just thrilled to be part of Triax 57 going forward. We'll give you the question of the day. We will also give you the Q-Fecta, as we typically do, my 3 best plays. We don't know where they're going to come from. I can tell you this, though. We know you can't get a prop anymore for Angel Reese's missed first jumper. So we'll have a little fun with that later on in the show as well. But as I mentioned, I want to start with the NBA. And there's a couple, again, schools of thought. It's really how you look at what transpired last night. I think at this point, it's safe to say, as much as people don't want to hear this, listen, the Pacers are cooked. I told you this Monday during Middays. I told you the series is over. The gut punch was delivered by OKC in Game 4. They knotted up. I didn't think the Pacers were going to hang around like they did last night. But this is where the conversation, this is where I think the media, the pundits, the talking heads have to really pump the brakes. When we start to talk about stars in the NBA, we start to talk about stars and star power. I got news for you. Tyrese Halliburton is not a star. He's not. And I know we've gone back and forth with this. I know I've kind of dissected it with you guys. I've broken it down. I've debated this with you guys as well. But he's not. And you can sit there and you can tell me I'm being too critical on the kid. He was banged up. He was hurt. If he doesn't go out there and play the second half, we're going to crucify him. If he goes out there and plays the second half and he struggles, we're still going to rip him. Well, you know what? You got to play hurt. You have to play hurt. And I thought last night, OKC should have blown the doors off of the Indiana Pacers. They were up by 10 after one quarter. And then Indiana chipped away. You go in the locker room, you make adjustments. McConnell's on the floor. Halliburton's banged up. Siakam's trying to carry the load with 28. They had no answers for Jalen Williams or SGA. Williams went off last night. He was absolutely brilliant. Even when the Pacers started to slice into that deficit, even when the Pacers started to actually make it a somewhat competitive game, even when the Pacers, maybe you thought were going to push OKC to the brink and steal a game and maybe the series, it's the role players that were stepping up. It's the superstars that were stepping up for the Thunder. And we saw it again last night. And that's the difference between a team like Indiana and a team like OKC. Because OKC, you got the big effort from Williams. You got 31 from SGA. You got 14 from Wiggins. You got 11 from Wallace. Guys contributed. They went to the line. They were knocking down free throws. They were knocking down shots from the charity stripe. They were knocking down three-point shots. They were just, again, they showed you the depth was the difference last night. And Halliburton was just miserable. He was absolutely off last night, and it's unacceptable. If you want to be a star, you got to suck it up. Bird played hurt. Jordan played hurt. Isaiah Thomas was limping up and down when he scored 25 points in the third quarter of an NBA Finals game against the Los Angeles Lakers in 1988. Jordan had the flu game. Bird's back was always banged up. Magic was tweaking hamstrings. Guys play hurt. Brady played hurt. Eli played hurt. Peyton played hurt. Marino played hurt. Superstars, legendary guys, legendary figures, legendary players find a way to step up and cash in and play when they're hurt. And Halliburton, again, you want to get on the kid. You don't want to get on the kid. I'm going to get on him. I thought last night I need it more. I need it more. And I know it's low bearing fruit where everyone's going to say, don't be overly critical. Don't be overly critical of the kid. Well, remember too, Halliburton was the one that came out and really got on the media, kind of clowned the media. And I had no problem with it. The only caveat to that, the only thing I'll say, the word of caution at that moment, if you recall, what did I say? If you are Halliburton, what do you have to do now? You have to turn around and you have to what? You have to perform. And he was not able to do that. He hasn't been able to do that. So I look at him right now as all bets are off. All bets are off. If you want to sit there and tell me that he's a superstar, I'm going to debate you. Has he been clutch in these playoffs? Has he elevated his game to a certain level during these playoffs? Has he made big shots, big buckets in these playoffs? Absolutely. Absolutely. But that doesn't necessarily define you as a superstar. It just doesn't. It doesn't necessarily mean that this kid is a superstar. And I'm not ready to go that route. I'm not. I'm just not ready to go that route. I can't. So we got the NBA Finals, Jonathan Marshall in about 10 minutes. We'll get into some baseball. Phillies, do not look now if you are a Phillies fan. The Philadelphia Phillies on a little bit of a run. A little bit of a run right now. We talk what they might do, what they might not do at the trade deadline. But right now, you are getting what you thought you were going to get if you are a Phillies fan. They had the big sweep against Toronto. They took it last night against Miami, 5-2, second of a 3-game set. They won 5 straight, 6 of the last 7. Luzardo's on the hill. He's rebounded after those 2 poor starts. They're starting to score a little bit here and there. The run production is going to be there. Once they have a healthy lineup, the Phillies are going to be an extremely tough out. The Mets, on the other hand, they're kind of falling by the wayside. I'm not going to panic if you're a Met fan. I told you guys this the other day. Obviously, they had the night off. They have a 3-game set against the Braves. They would love to stop that 3-game slide. They were up 4.5, 5 against the Philadelphia Phillies. Then you blink, and now they're only up 2 games. And then the Yankees. That's as bad as a loss, regular season, that I can recall. Frustrating loss for my Yankees last night. Again, nothing offensively. I mean, in a game against an inferior opponent against Angels, you can't scratch out a run. That's as bad as a loss. And now this slide, you start to get a little concerned, right? You beat up on Kansas City, but then you get swept by the Red Sox, and now you lose the first against the Angels, 1-0. They scratch out a run in the 11th. And my problem right now with the Yankees is this. I don't know who they are. Like, what's their identity? I can't figure out their identity. We talk about this team being an offensive juggernaut. Okay, that's great. Are you going to try to win games with pitching, middle relief, bullpen? I can't figure this team out for the life of me. I know they brought back Stanton. I know they have some injuries. I know the bullpen's taken some hits. But right now, if I'm a Yankees fan, which I am, I'm a little concerned with this team. We know they're going to do something. We know they're going to do something at the trade deadline because that's what they do. That's what the Yankees do. So we got some baseball on the table. We obviously had the NBA Finals. Your thoughts last night? I just thought it was an absolute dud of a performance by someone that we're trying to label a star in Halliburton. And if anything, you need to bounce back and you need to carry your teammates. Look, you're hurt. It's all well and good. I already got some comments coming in on X. I got some comments coming in on Facebook. I'll get to them in a moment. Starts chiming in to start things off from Wilmington. I think you're being way overly critical of Halliburton. A couple weeks ago, you were dubbing this kid a franchise player and a clutch player. Now you're pulling a 180 Q. Which one is it? Listen, you can be a franchise player and you can be a clutch player. Doesn't necessarily equate, again, to you being a star. That's all I'm saying. It doesn't necessarily equate to you being a star. And I look around the NBA, we saw star power last night. In the NBA, you guys know this. You need that 1-2 punch, do you not? You need that 1-2 punch. So you saw it last night with SGA. who is just a phenomenal player. And then to back him and to pick things up, you have Williams, who scores 40, who is unstoppable. He was absolutely brilliant last night, the kid. So basketball is different from some of these other sports that we talk about. Obviously, in the NFL, we talk franchise quarterbacks because you're under center. You're touching the ball the most. Everything's contingent on you offensively, right? You live and die. We tag wins and losses to the quarterback. But last night, you saw the players that said, hey, we're superstars in this league. We're franchise players, combined for 71. Plus, they got 25 from the bench. I'm speaking of OKC. Conversely, you look at Indiana last night, Siakam, the wily vet, gives them 28. Neesmith gave him 14. McConnell played well last night. A lot of people are saying, why are you taking TJ off the floor? He's going to give you a couple turnovers here and there. But Halliburton, 0 for 6, 0 for 4 from beyond the arc, and he got to the line 4 times, and he scored 4 points. That's not superstar-like performance. Guys, it's not. It really isn't. So I hear what you're saying, Sarge. Kevin C. in Claymont chiming in. Q, good start to the show. Always enjoy the NBA talk. Curious to get your thoughts on the NBA draft with Jonathan in a couple minutes. But back to Halliburton. Definitely not a star, but I think you can build around him. Again, not a star, but you can certainly build around him. Bunker Boys, de facto leader of the Bunker Boys, chiming in. Collared shirt today. Did you have a court appearance? I did not. But the jury's still out on the Bunker Boys, by the way, and some of their weak takes. So how about that? How about that starting things off on a Tuesday with the de facto leader of the Bunker Boys? No, I did not. No court appearance. I don't get in trouble. I'm not a guy that gets in trouble. You guys know that. We have a couple takes and opinions here and there, but we're not looking for trouble. We're not looking for trouble at all. And if there was a court appearance in my future, I would make that court appearance. That's all I'm saying. I would make that court appearance. Some people decide to avoid the court system altogether. I'm not one of those guys, but we don't have to, knock on wood, we don't have to worry about that. De facto leader of the Bunker Boys. Matty G. Jackson, New Jersey, chiming in. Q, you're killing this kid. I don't get it. Last week he was a star. This week he stinks. Make up your mind. I'm not saying he stinks. All I'm saying is last night he didn't play particularly well. And I understand if you're hurt and you're banged up. That's the nature of the game, period. And listen, here's the issue with Halliburton at this moment. If you're dealing with any type of calf strain, and now you're going to go an MRI, if you can walk, you can play. If you can suck it up, you have to be out there because there is no margin of error. There isn't. At this point, if you're the Indiana Pacers and you're Halliburton, Thursday night, 8:30, ABC, tip-off in Indianapolis, here's your season. Here's your season. If you want to be that franchise player, if you want to be the guy to carry the load, to shoulder the load, to prove to your teammates you can go out there in the foxhole, right? In the foxhole, and you can play banged up and you can perform, that goes such a long way. I am not insinuating for this kid to go out, and if there's damage to that calf, if it's really bad and he can tear, I'm not saying that. But if you can walk, guess what? You're going to play. You're going to play. It's the NBA Finals. There should not be excuses. And the target is on his back even more so because of the comments he had after he was basically being critical of Stephen A. Smith and the media and calling everyone clowns for questioning Indiana, for questioning the run, for questioning his type of game, for questioning if the franchise was legit, if they can compete with OKC, if they were overmatched. So all of a sudden, he turns around and he starts barking like that. You have to back it up. You have to. You cannot count on Halliburton to get you to the promised land. He is not that dude. They got to the finals. They got to the finals with him. To be fair, if you're saying get over the hump, then that is a totally different animal. Siakam has played well. Turner has played well. McConnell has played well off the bench. We're talking role players for Indiana. OKC is just too deep. There's a reason that OKC won 68 games and Indiana won 50, 51 games. All right, a lot of comments coming in. We'll read them off. Jonathan Marshall's going to join me in a couple moments. We'll get his thoughts on NBA Finals. There was a trade already prior to the draft. Also, you got the top five. We'll keep it back locally. Philadelphia 76ers. We'll kind of mock it a little bit and see what he believes the Philadelphia 76ers will or will not do. I also have to ask him about the head coaching vacancy with my New York Knicks. I feel as though perfect example, de facto comes in with the court appearance. It feels like right now, all these potential head coaching candidates, they got that summons and they're trying to avoid it. The summons was the Knicks being interested in hiring them as head coaches, and all of a sudden they're just running in the other direction. They want no parts of the Knicks. So we'll break that down as well. Keep it locked in, just cranking it up. 15 past the 4 o'clock hour, a Tuesday edition of Middays with Q. We are live on TriX 57. Don't forget, give them a follow. You can get social. It's pretty easy to do. You can follow along at TriX57 on Facebook, IGX. Log on to www.trix57.com. You can follow me on IG and X, as always, at RichQ and Q, and TikTok, RichQ on the mic, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are live on my YouTube channel and X, along with TriX57 and their Facebook page, respectively. Jonathan Marshall, in a couple moments, you guys out there, keep the comments coming as well. Hashtag MWQ, Middays with Q. Q-Fecta around 5:45, a little more baseball talk at 4:50. Lloyd Vance in the 5 o'clock hour. NFC North, that's the division we are going to highlight on this Tuesday edition of Middays with Q. Do not go anywhere. Quick timeout. We will come back on the other side. We'll reset the table. NBA talk with Jonathan Marshall. All right, welcome back to a Tuesday edition of Middays with Q. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quiñones, our good friend outside enjoying the wilderness on this Tuesday. He probably decided the little one is napping, and he basically decided, I need to go outside. I need it to be quiet with my guy Q, and of course, that's our good friend Jonathan Marshall. Did a great job with covering the NBA hoops head for WMUR at John_Marshall 3. That's the only assumption I can make. I figured that you had to get
Yeah,
outside.
yeah. He was a little fussy this afternoon. He got his bottle. Now he's resting with mother. So everything's chill. But I don't want to take that chance. I know last show he stole the show.
He
We can't
did.
let that happen. We can't let that
No,
happen again. Killing
No,
Daphne.
people thought we were sponsored by Huggies and Gerber and all this kind of nonsense.
Exactly, exactly.
All right, we won't hold you, but always appreciate a couple moments. All
Yeah.
right, so listen, at face value, you look at last night.
Mhm.
We thought OKC was going to win this series in maybe the gentleman's sweep, 5 games, definitely 6 games. Halliburton banged up. I started the show and I've been getting killed already on social because I went from Halliburton, potentially being the guy and a clutch player. Is he that superstar? Is he that franchise player? Hurt or not hurt?
Mhm.
You look at Halliburton, he's kind of been hit or miss in the NBA's finals. I think OKC's figured out, but I'm sorry, Jonathan. If you
Yeah.
can walk and you're out there, you got to be able to put up some numbers and points. And he was not able to do that again last night. Siakam had to carry the load. McConnell had to carry the load. How do you view Halliburton at this moment?
Yeah, and that's the thing, Q. Like, if you're out there, you're. I don't want to hear any excuses about injuries because if you're hurt, then don't play. And so if you're out there, if you're suited up, if you're reporting to your job, the expectation is that we have to put in a full effort, right? No excuses, correct? We have to perform. We have to meet those expectations. And what annoys me the most is this superstar conversation. I think that word is tossed around too freely. The word face of the league, that's thrown around too freely, right? Superstars are separated at moments such as this.
Correct.
We see an SGA step up even when he's tired, he's exhausted. He's making big shots in those big moments, right? That was the Allen Iversons, the Kobe's, the Shaqs, the MJ's, the Steph Curry's. Like, we know who those guys are, right? So when we're saying is Tyrese Halliburton a superstar, well, as of this moment, I don't think we're doing him justice. And I don't think we're doing ourselves justice as basketball fans, just tossing that word out so freely when he hasn't proven anything yet on the biggest stages. Now, he's had big moments in big games, but this is the NBA Finals. This is where legends are made, and this is where reputations are made. And so, Tyrese Halliburton is an all-star caliber player, no doubt, but there is a separation between all-star and superstar. And I think we're seeing the level that it takes to get to that point. And these are growing pains from Tyrese Halliburton as well, right? Like, he's still young. He is in the NBA Finals for the first time. This is a growing experience for him as well. But I think as the media and fans in general, I don't like tossing around the word superstar so loosely. It just doesn't sit right, especially coming from the era that I came to know and love the game. I know what a superstar looks like,
Sure.
and it's not what I see in Indiana.
No, certainly not with this. Not with these NBA finals. You can be clutch
Right.
and you can have big moments, but it doesn't define you as a
Right.
franchise player slash superstar. And I think the crux of me opening the show with that is the fact that he blasted the meeting, and rightfully so, right? I mean,
Mhm.
he's going after Stephen A. Now I call him solitary Stephen A. Smith, but he's going after these guys. He's going after guys like you and I that do this for a living, that maybe
Yeah.
question his credibility, his resume, his body of work.
Mhm.
Hurt or no hurt, again, you got to perform. I think he was shying away last night. That's the problem. Now, I know he's going to get that MRI. If he can walk, he's got to be out there. I mean, this is it. You're down 3-2. It goes back to Indianapolis. You're not winning a game 7 in OKC. You're just
No.
not.
No.
It's just OKC they're too deep. They're too athletic. And right now, they have the two best players on the floor that reside on their team in SGA, and of course Williams, who I just thought was absolutely, brilliant. I guess is kind of overstated, but this
Yeah.
kid was basically able to do anything he wanted. It didn't matter if they
Mhm.
rotated, if they switched up, if they doubled him,
Yeah.
if they tried to, again have him create. Offensively, Indiana was supposed to be that team to get up and down the floor, like run, 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 run. And a lot of times with Siakam, and a couple of the listeners pointed this out brilliantly the other day, it was too much ISO ball, right? I mean, that's not his game. That's not Indiana's game, even with Halliburton or having McConnell come off the bench or getting other players involved. I just think OKC, offensively, it's a matchup nightmare for the Pacers.
Yeah, and we always talk about, especially when it comes to playoff series, which team has the widest or shortest margin of error. And in this matchup, it's clear Indiana, their margin of error is slim against a team like OKC. Yes, we know SGA, we know Jalen Williams, we know Chet Holmgren, but you have guys like Alex Caruso, who I think has been amazing,
Played
just
really
causing
well.
havoc on both ends of the floor, doing things that you can't account for. Lou Dort making big shots, Kaysen Wallace, Aaron Wiggins. having big shots, a big time performance, right? Isaiah and Hartenstein, like they have guys they can go to on the bench that, yes, they may not be the marquee names, but they're doing things to make an impact on the game, whether it's getting a big rebound, a key rotational move on defense, a extra pass here, a big shot. Like OKC is such a it's I don't want to call them a juggernaut, but they're getting to that point to where with the experience that they're gaining now, it's going to get scary for the league because what was the conversation leading up to the playoffs, Q? Nobody's scared of the Thunder. They haven't proven anything. Well, you take last year's experience, which I don't take for granted. I don't think I said this before on a previous show. I don't think people gave enough credit to their experience in last year's playoffs, losing to that series against the Mavericks, right? I think that was a hard, tough lesson because they had the great season last year.
Right.
SGA was in the MVP conversation. They come back, double
Right.
back on it, wins the MVP, and here they are in the finals. You have to go through Jokic and the Nuggets. That was a tough series. They took care of Minnesota. They had a tough loss against Indiana to open up the series. They blew that game, right?
Yep.
But they
Yep.
bounced back. They get a
Yep.
huge win in game 2. They've shown gradually that this team is coming into their own. And what Jalen Williams did last night was shut up a lot of the doubters because he was the biggest question mark for a lot of people. They didn't think he was a capable number 2. That should be silenced now. 40 points in NBA Finals, you can't question that. That's not a fluke.
No, you can't. You really can't. Man chiming in. 4 p.m. meetings need to stop. We agree with you. I mean, you're locked in. We're locked in at 4 p.m. That's it. But we appreciate nonetheless. We appreciate you jumping on board. My guy Vince chimes in. Question for Jay Marsh. Read a report that Sixers are trying to move up in the draft. Is this true? Why, if Dallas isn't trading number 1 pick? We're going to get into. That's a great question. We're getting into the draft in a second. I just want to close out a couple quick things on the NBA Finals. You think OKC closes out tomorrow night?
I think so. I and I texted you this. Indiana blew game the previous game. They blew it.
Yeah.
Like they blew game 4. Like that was OKC took that away from them. And you're not going back to OKC winning that game. I think the Thunder close it out in game 6. I think they have the momentum. I think Indiana know they lost a huge opportunity. This series is over for me. It's over.
I mean, is SGA MVP?
Woo. That Jalen Williams game was huge. That was a huge game. But I still think SGA, he's had some big buckets throughout these playoffs, especially the game 4 win in Indiana. I would give the slight edge to SGA. Unless if Jalen Williams comes back and drops another 40 piece on him to close out the series, we have a conversation. But I have to give it to SGA. He completes the sweep of MVPs this year with the regular season and finals.
Incredible season, and that's a team that you said watch last year. So all the credit to you. You called it. All right. As far as we already saw that there was a move made today, draft wise, which again, it really depends on how you view the draft. And by the way, Halliburton does have a calf strain. He's going to have that MRI. So it really all depends how you view the draft. So the Pacers right now trade a first round pick to the Pelicans. So I posted it up, and let me see if I can grab it for you guys to see. We'll get Jonathan's thoughts on this. All right, here's your draft order: Dallas, San Antonio, Philadelphia, Charlotte, Utah. So the question is, let's just say we'll get to Vince's question in a moment, but for the Sixers right now at 3, there have been a couple of mock drafts. Now we're about a little more than a week or so away, and they're sitting with the number 3 pick. So they can either bring in a top 3 prospect, in a very rich, talented draft. They can trade down. They can acquire more assets. I know different names will be thrown out there. The kid Edgecomey, now all of a sudden the kid from Baylor kind of rising. We always talk about the players that are rising. If you get a private workout, I see you grinning a little bit. What do you think the Sixers do at number 3, and what direction do you think they go?
I think there's either two options, right? I don't see them trading up because for me, Dylan Harper is the second best prospect. I'm a huge fan of Dylan Harper. I don't see how San Antonio gives up that second pick and they don't get like a Giannis or a KD in return, right? Like I think that number 2 pick is valuable for San Antonio either way, whether you stick with the Dylan Harper or you trade that piece away to add in a superstar to pair with Wemby. I just don't see why San Antonio gives up that second pick. It's just too valuable, right? For Philly, this is where the draft really starts. And so if you're staying put, I think the options are either Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, or Trey Johnson from Texas. But I can also see them trading back. I know there's talks about a possible New Orleans deal, getting a Herb Jones in their pick, which actually wouldn't be too bad, actually. Herb Jones provides what this team desperately needs, which is athleticism on the wing, defensive presence on the wing. We're seeing with this finals here, what are we seeing, Q? Teams that have guys that can play
Sure.
defense, aren't afraid to actually be ball players, right? Can make big shots, can cause havoc, provide energy, athletic, and make stops. And Herb Jones brings that. You add in another lottery pick in that deal as well. You can still get a Con Knipple maybe, or Trey Johnson, who I'm a huge fan of. So I think they actually have good options. Now, a lot of draft philosophies are different for everybody and every team. I don't get too caught up in position. I get caught up in talent. Who's the best player that you can pick at this position? In 4 years, where do you see this guy? So Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, Con Knipple, Trey Johnson. Who will be the better player in 4 years? For me, I love Trey Johnson's game. He's a
Okay.
scorer. He can shoot the rock. In today's game, you can never have too many guards. So whether it's Jared McCain, Tyrese Maxey, Quentin Grimes, Trey Johnson, if Trey Johnson reaches the heights that I think he can reach, that's 4 guys that can get a bucket. And you need bucket getters come playoff time. VJ Edgecombe to me is very intriguing. I'm actually really high on him as well. Athletic. He brings high energy. He's raw when it comes to offense, right? But his shot isn't broken.
Pretty good
And
defender.
actually, pretty good defender. But I love the base. I love the foundation because if you look at his shot, it's not broken, right? With repetition and actually getting in a consistent workout regimen when it comes to being professional, I think Edgecombe can be a really, really good two-way player in this league. If he works on his handle, I think he can be a very, very dangerous prospect, especially with Therese Maxey, Jared McCain. I'm high on VJ Edgecombe. And then Con Knipple, he's a sleeper too for lottery teams. He's a solid player. He's not going to wow you with his athleticism, but I think there's more to his game than just being a shooter. And that's coming from me, who is
Right.
not a Duke. I'm not a Duke fan. I've been an anti-Duke person since forever, right? And so I actually like this year's group of Duke players in Cooper Flag and Con Knipple. Not as high up on the big fella, but Cooper Flag and Con Knipple, I think, will be really solid players, but Knipple can also be a solid option for the Sixers if they choose to trade back as well. So they have good options. Ace Bailey, to me, at 6'10", listed at 6'10", intriguing. I
Yeah.
think there are concerns with his ability or lack of ability to create separation on the drive. How much will that, lower his production at the next level? Because he made a lot of tough shots at Rutgers. I'm not sure if that should be a concern for teams, but it's something to look at for sure. How consistently can he put pressure on the defense when it comes to being off the bounce threat? So
You you
that's
you
my thoughts on Ace Bailey.
you talked about what a team's philosophy
Mm-hmm.
or their philosophy might not be. So if you're the
Yeah.
Philadelphia 76ers and you're kind of looking around and you're kind of walking or going through the landscape of the Eastern Conference, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we know that everyone in the NBA can create their own shot, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
know that. And a lot of guys can knock it from beyond the arc and a lot of bigs can knock it from beyond the arc. But
Yeah.
are they trying to build in and out or are they trying to build out in, meaning get the depth, have the guard penetrate, feed it in Embiid, have them kick out, or let's just rely on the perimeter, the wing guys, and then they can start to set the tone a little bit offensively. So it kind of chicken or the
Yeah.
egg. That's why I asked you about philosophy, because if you're
Yeah.
trying to go back and you're running it back with Embiid and you're trying to squeeze blood out of a stone and get
Yeah.
another good couple years out of them, then again, you want someone that can draw out the defense, right? So you mentioned the kid from Baylor, and then you got Maxey and McCain and Grimes and George. That's another dimension to the Sixers
Yeah.
offensively. So,
Yeah.
what kind of philosophy offensively? How do you think the Sixers? What are they looking to do offensively?
Yeah. I would hope they have learned their lesson and understand that building with the Joel Embiid as your centerpiece is not getting you anywhere right now. I mean, obviously his physical limitations right now being what they are, I think it would be malpractice to continue to focus on Joel Embiid when it comes to how do we build this roster. I've said it before, Q. When it comes to their draft strategy and free agency, their mindset should not be on Joel Embiid. We're building around Tyrese Maxey, and Jared McCain?
But
How do
Jonathan,
we best benefit them?
yeah. Listen, you know I respect your opinion. Not to cut you off,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that's not the reality. That
yeah.
you're looking at a player that he is still the face of the franchise. Embiid,
Of
whether
course.
okay, so it's again that's the
Yeah,
rub, right? They're
right.
trying to appease him, and I think
Yeah,
sometimes what they're trying to do is hammer
yeah,
that square peg in that round hole.
yeah,
And it's just not working, right? Because they're
right.
always like trying to find the right fit. They're trying to bring in the guy that they think, whether it's going to be Simmons, whether it's going to be Harden, whether it's going to be George. It has not worked out.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, you're absolutely right. As long as Joel Embiid is on this roster, we can talk about common sense and what basketball logic tells us, right? And that's, when I started out, I'm talking to you in a logical sense when it comes to basketball, right? But we know in reality, right? We know in reality they're paying this man a lot of money,
Yeah, they
right?
are.
He's on all the promotional, like he's the reason why people are coming to the games to watch. And Joel Embiid is the carrot that they dangle in front of fans to give them hope, right? And
Yeah,
so as long as that's there, I have question marks about if they're really going to build this team the right way. If you watch these playoffs, if you're still figuring out how to build around Joel Embiid, well, to me, I have to question your mindset. You're foolish
yeah,
because today's game is about having versatile guys who can play on both ends of the floor, athletic wings, dynamic guards, guys who can actually be basketball players, multiple threats,
yeah,
passing, shooting, attacking, dribbling. Like you got to be a basketball player, right? Like you have to build the team around from the outside on in. Look at the
yeah.
championships in past years. We've had this conversation. How many times have champions, their best player been a post player in the last 20 years? And the ones that had the post player, that was a generation, that was an outlier. Jokic,
Generational
right?
talents.
Tim Duncan, Shaq,
Sure. Sure.
right?
Yep. Yeah.
SGA is about OKC is about to win the championship. Their threat is from the outside.
And
The Celtics,
Joker's an outlier too.
the Celtics,
Right.
threat from the outside. Jason
Right.
Tatum, Jalen Brown, Derek White, right?
Right.
The front court was a complementary piece, right? You don't ignore that. You still need to have guys who can do the dirty work and be threats down there, but you got to have guys that can actually attack and be dynamic. And for Philly, you're not in a position to be stingy about position basketball. You got to get guys. You just focus on talent. Like it seems simple, Q, but Daryl Morey and this Sixers front office make it so complicated.
Because they're overanalyzing. They're so
Yeah.
paranoid. What they're trying to do, and this is what I gather from speaking to a couple people close to the
Mm-hmm.
organization or
Mm-hmm.
the inner workings.
Yeah.
They're trying to squeeze a couple more years out of Embiid, right? And they're hoping we can get 65, 70 plus games, 25 once the playoff runs, 25 a
Yeah.
night, 15 rebounds once the playoff rolls around. But we're fearful that we're drafting a player to complement him. And if it doesn't work out with him, we've screwed ourselves again out of a pick. Like you can't serve two masters, and that's what they're
Right.
trying to do. And that's
Right.
the problem. I want to get to a couple comments here. See, this is what happens, by the way, when you're older and you're married and you're a father. Now you become like Mr. Marsh, right? Mr. Marsh. That's what that turns in. When you ask Mr. Marshall,
That's
you think
hilarious.
McCain gets back to some kind of form or comes back better.
Oh yeah, I think so. I'm not concerned about him about that injury. He's still young. We know modern medicine. He'll be back. And I think having that opportunity to actually sit back, first of all, having the opportunity to actually see that he can play at this level, because he
Yeah,
shocked me. Like he was a talented player coming into Duke and coming out of Duke, but he exceeded everyone's expectations. And
right.
so as a young player, that's important to see, okay, I can play in this league, right? Because a young player's confidence can as quickly as it can blow up, it can quickly die out. And so he has that confidence, right? And so being able to sit back also and see the game from a different viewpoint, right? Having a full year under his belt to train and to get stronger. And so I'm excited to see what he does in year two, him and Maxey being able to develop that chemistry. And once again, though, when it comes to this draft philosophy, they have to focus on those two guys because those two guys are what? They're undersized and defensively, they're not going to be stopping too many
Yeah.
backcourts when it comes to playoff basketball. So when you're drafting, when you're building this team, how are we helping these guys defensively for the next couple years to foster their development and to put them in the best positions possible? That should be the focus.
I've been, not that I failed to ask you this. I had it when on my notes, but what did you think of the Grizzlies trade in Bain to Orlando?
It's interesting. I think Memphis realized that with that trio of Desmond Bain, John Morant, and Jaren Jackson, that there was a ceiling. And kudos to them. Like we can't criticize teams for holding on too long and then criticize a team for recognizing, okay, there's a ceiling. We got to make a move. And kudos to you for having that foresight, Zach Kleiman and the Grizzlies front office. Kudos to you for getting a haul of first round picks. Who knows what that could turn into, right? The next couple of draft class could be really good. Who knows what happens with those picks? And so I'm not totally against that move for Memphis. Like if you feel like you've reached a ceiling, you see where the Western Conference is going with the Spurs, obviously. We know where the Thunder are, right? The Spurs should get better. The Rockets are young and growing. The Timberwolves, who knows how they develop over the next couple of years. We got to catch up. We got to keep pace. And right now, they're behind. And so, what's the quickest way for us to get better? Not just next year, but in 4 years, what position are we going to be in? Because these teams in 4 years are still going to be around. On the flip side for Orlando, they're going all in. This is what this tells me. They see an Eastern Conference that Boston should be weaker, the Bucks should be weaker. Indiana made the finals this year, but you know they can easily fall off next year. Not they can easily anything happen come playoff time, right? And so you got the Cavaliers, right? There are some question marks with them. Can they actually win when it matters? And so for Orlando, you have Paulo Banchero, Franz Wagner. Their main weakness was shooting. And Desmond Bain, if anything, if you know anything about Desmond Bain, he's a shooter. He plays well off the ball. I don't know if this puts them over the hump as far as being a true Eastern Conference championship contender, but they've improved. And so for both sides, I think they accomplished what they wanted to do. And I'm not mad at it. I'm not.
441 on Tuesday edition, Middays with Q. Rich Quiñones here. We're powered and live on Trix 57, also on X and multiple platforms. Jonathan Marshall kind enough to join us. We'll take you up to 6. Lloyd Vance at 5:05 on the NFC North. Vince actually is reading my mind here. Is Morant the answer? Like, is there going to be a time? I know he's going back and forth again with everyone's with the media, with solitary Stephen A. Smith now talking about
Yeah.
the city being dangerous, no one wants to play there, or hey, it's a good chemistry, these are good guys. What's going to go on in the off season? We always talk about players being worth the trouble, even the really good ones. And he's already had some issues that's rubbed the franchise the wrong way, the league the
Yeah.
wrong way. And I hate saying, when's a guy going to get it? Because
Yeah.
that's a loaded, no pun intended. It's a loaded question, because what does that really mean? Like, are they going to mature? Are they going to settle in? Are they going to find their niche? So to Vince's
Mm,
question, right? Comment, Morant, the next move makes sense to clean house and
yeah.
stash picks. Do you believe Memphis would move him, and would that be the right move by the franchise?
I've thought about that question, Q. Very interesting. It's complicated for a franchise in a city like Memphis, though, right? Think about how Allen, what AI meant to Philly.
Sure.
Philly's a major market, but take that and add it to a market like Memphis and what John Morant has done for that franchise. His Nikes sell out immediately in that market. The kids love him. The fans love him. Like he fits his play style, his energy. Like he fits. Like I lived out there. I covered the team. Like
Cover the team, sure.
the impact that he has on that city, you would have to be there to actually understand the impact, the
Is it
business
an
impact.
upheaval like Dallas
Yeah.
trading Luka?
It would be close to that. Obviously, Luka led that team to certain heights, right? They made
Mm-hmm.
the finals. They won the Western Conference Championship. It's a different level, but even Dallas is a market to where, it's a market that will be okay, right? Like Dallas isn't, it's a pretty nice sized city in a nice
Right.
sized state.
Right.
Memphis, on the other hand, we know about, the grit and grind there with Marc Gasol, Zach Randolph, Mike Conley, Tony Allen. But after that, it was a real quiet period of energy and excitement. And so John Morant has brought a lot of energy to that. But what's my philosophy, Q, when it comes to small guards? I talked
Yep.
about you with Jalen Brunson and the Knicks. I got to keep it consistent. As
Yep.
big of a fan of John Morant's game as I have been, you have to look at the team in totality. Having
Yep.
a 6'1", 6-foot guard in the Western Conference being your number one option, is that the most? Is that
Is that the most sound way
limiting?
to go?
Yeah,
Yeah.
is that limiting your ceiling? And I would have to say yes, given my philosophy. There are only a few small guards who have led a team to an NBA Finals: Isaiah Thomas, Steph Curry, Allen Iverson. Right?
I
Like
mean, and to
it's
be
a few.
honest, Thomas to me scored, but he was not. Isaiah Thomas was to me a point guard,
Right.
and then
Right.
he would distribute,
Mm.
and then he would score.
Right.
Curry was a
Making others better.
Sure, Curry
Right.
was a scorer first.
Best shooter ever,
There
by
you
the way.
go. Right
So
shooting guard, point
it
guard.
took
Right,
best
but
shooter ever to
yeah, but I understand what you're saying, right? And
yeah.
Iverson, as a guard for his stature, was all
Yeah.
about scoring first, right? The
Right.
assist be damned, right?
Right.
It was
Right.
secondary.
So if you're going to build around a small guard like that, you better build around him with the right pieces, guys that can shoot, right? Guys that can defend, guys that can distribute. Like you have to be very careful with how you're building that roster. If you're not ready to do that, you got to have some hard questions. You have
Right,
to.
right. Yeah, yeah. Before I let you get out of here,
Mhm.
I feel like the Knicks. I don't know
I got the
what
call from them today, Q. I got the call. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it.
I was going to say, are you going to take Are you going to take it, or are you going to decline it like everyone else?
They got to meet they have to meet my demands.
Did you see Gilbert Arenas basically said they're going after guys that they know they can't get because ultimately the conspiracy theory is that they're going to offer the job to Rick Brunson, which I said, if they do that, you guys know what I do on Sundays when the Giants are bad. I mean, I will just forget about the Knicks. I won't even deal with that nonsense anymore. I mean, and don't retread these guys, man. I don't want to see Mike Brett just
Taylor Jenkins. You know,
no.
it screams to me that they didn't have a plan, Q. How do you fire a guy in Tom Thibodeau who you guys had your best season in years and you fire him?
Is it possible they did, and then all of a sudden in the witching hour
So
that
was Jason Kidd their guy?
I, I think again, the way I try to connect the dots in my warped world, right? I believe they made the move because they had an idea of who they wanted. They had to.
Mm,
I don't believe if that's a knee jerk reaction, then
mm,
shame on me. I look like a clown because I backed the move. But if it
yeah,
turns out it was totally knee jerk reaction after what
mm,
Tibbs did, then
yeah,
shame on them. They get what they deserve, right? And I can get criticized. I'm fine with that.
right.
But I feel though they knew they were going to move in a different direction. Kid was on the radar, connect the
Mm,
dots. Who's also
yeah,
out there? Giannis, the
yeah,
relationship. Here we
yeah,
go. We're going to
yeah,
move Cat. And now all of a sudden, that shot to you know what. So now you got to go to plan B, plan C, plan D. I mean, you keep going, you keep going, you keep. I mean,
I,
it just I don't know. I don't want Mike Brown. I don't. I don't care what the odds are. Plus 125. I just you're talking about a 44% implied chance that he's going to be hired. This guy was dismissed by Sacramento during the regular season. I've been down this road. Just no, no, no.
I was like when I saw the name Taylor Jenkins, I was like, wait, they're just throwing darts and trying to shoot their shot at everybody, right? Like, um, I have to question the front office then, right? Because if you're banking all in on Jason Kidd, and all of a sudden I'm hearing these retread names, to me, and we talk about this all the time, Q, you should be having a list of up and coming, like fresh names. I want to see that. I don't want to see Taylor Jenkins. I don't want to see Mike Brown. Like there,
Right.
what I feel like I'm missing a
Budenholzer,
few other names that we're hearing. Mike, like I'm surprised I didn't hear
Budenholzer,
Mike
Van
Dan. Like
Gundy. Yeah.
I felt like I heard Mike D'Antoni pop. I'm shocked we didn't hear D'Antoni's name pop up. Right? Like, come on. But this is what we're going. This is the road that we're going down.
You know what's
We
going to
talking.
happen? By default, it's going to be Johnny Bryant.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to be Johnny Bryant.
Yeah. It's like whoever's left on the list, right? Whoever takes this deal, pretty much. Like we have a job for somebody, just take it. That's pretty much where it's at right now.
I
Oh, the
just
draft's coming up, right? I
yeah
mean, things are happening. The offseason is
right.
happening for teams. You gotta. It's important to have a coach in place, right? To
I
figure out.
mean, you would think, would you not? Right? I mean, it's how you properly run a franchise. But we're also talking about the Knicks here, right? And whether it was Rose or Dolan, I still
Yeah.
maintain that if Rose didn't like what Dolan was saying, Rose makes enough money. He didn't care at that point. He didn't.
Yeah.
Um, Really? This is where we're going now? Face it, Q. They're going to hire Phil Jackson, the coach from Montana.
Championship pedigree.
Yeah, Phil Jackson can stay. The whole Isaiah Thomas, Phil Jackson. Remember, I mean, all Phil Jackson did was collect a check, and he joked and smoked, and he was going to go
Hey,
find himself and all this other kind of nonsense.
bring back Mike Woodson. You know.
No, 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 no. And listen, I mean, you want to really think outside the box, go and get Becky Harmon, but obviously that's not going to happen
Listen,
because she pretty much ripped Jalen Brunson.
that is true.
So throw that out the window.
She's not the biggest fan of little building around little guards. Neither
Yeah.
am I.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of little guards, I know you probably have to go tend to little. You got that nice little the backdrop nature. Everything
Peaceful
weather
Q.
seems to be real nice.
But deep down, I know when I go back in there, it's nothing but tears and yeah.
Is it utter chaos? Have you been
utter
sleeping?
chaos? No sleep. Q 2 hours at a time. It's rough. It's rough. It all pay off though. It all pay off once he gets older and yeah. I'm hoping he latches on to basketball. We can train him up right, and one day he'll bring respectability to a franchise in NBA. We'll see. Maybe you're next.
Last comment by the man before I let you out of here. Is there a chance that they had their guy to verbally agree fire Tibbs and the verbal agreement fell through? That's
It's
possibly.
possible. I mean, I do feel like Jason Kidd, I can see him wanting to be in New York, but the Mavericks have to okay that. So it's one thing to have an agreement between coach and team, but there's another side of it that has to sign off on that. You just can't take a team's coach, you know.
No, you can't. But
it's pretty embarrassing though for a team like the Knicks, for a franchise like the Knicks, to go through this list of coaches and what are we doing here? It's incompetence. That's what it is, Q. And to have the season that you guys had, the momentum,
yeah,
and then to be in this debacle where you're the joke of social media when it comes to the coaching cycle.
No, but see, no, you know what you're doing right now. You're not being objective. What you're doing right now.
This is true.
No. You're taking little digs because you're a Philly guy. So
Listen.
right now I'm beside myself because the Knicks don't have a head coach. The Knicks were bounced. They should be in the NBA Finals. I'm beside myself because the Yankees can't score any runs against the Angels. I'm beside myself because I don't know what the heck's going to happen in the NFL season while you're going to sit there with the Philadelphia Eagles and probably repeat. So this is what you do.
Probably.
I bring you on good faith because that's what friends do. Contemporaries for 15 plus years.
Yes,
my former intern who sat behind the glass and had to deal with me. And now you're big timing me and you're just tweaking.
Q.
Yeah.
Look, I want the best for you. I want the best for you. I know it's not good for your health to see your teams lose.
No.
And I'm just trying to raise the level of standard for your teams. That's all I'm trying to do, Q. Maybe Jackson Dart has a plan for your life.
I hear the kid crying in the background. Go.
Jackson Dart has a plan. Just trust in Jackson Dart.
The segment's brought to you by Gerber. I hear the kid crying. All right, brother. We'll do it again next week, man. I always appreciate you jumping on board.
All right, Q.
All right, you got it. Be well. All right, there you have it, my guy, Jonathan Marshall. Don't forget to give him a follow on social media platforms as well. Does a really good job covering the NBA. Also, up there in Boston, WMUR. Scotty Boy chimes in. When did the Mecca of basketball lose its luster, Q? Can you pinpoint it? I don't know if it's lost its luster. I feel as though... Okay, so coaches talk to each other, right? Coaches talk to each other. It's like you're working a job and, maybe you're in a different department, same umbrella, same building, and your buddy or the guy you work with or see in passing, you're friendly with him, you watch a couple games, had a couple pops, whatever. And then you find out all of a sudden he gets canned. He was doing his job, never missed time, he gets canned. Now that opening is right there. Someone's like, "Hey, Scott, go and grab this opening, right? Rich just got he got canned. It's right there for you." So I'm not going to badmouth the former employee because that's what Tibbs didn't do. He showed class. So I might say, "Hey, man, you might want to, check the box is here." And you're thinking, Scott, well, they got rid of a good guy in Rich, who's a hard worker and producer. why would I want to take that job, right? There's no stability. It's on too shaky ground. And people, we joke on the show reading the room a lot. We say that all the time. Read the room, read the room, read the room. I think in this instance, if a coach gets fired after leading a team to 50 something odd wins and a deep run in the playoffs, Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 20 plus years, and he gets fired, the first reaction is, the way I look at it in my experience is, he had to butt heads with the manager. He had to butt heads with the GM. He had to butt heads with the owner. They were not philosophically on the same page. It was not aligned. That's the only thing I can think of. Because if you make a knee-jerk reaction and fire a coach, and I used the example of Denver, but Denver was a little different. The Denver Nuggets won the championship 2 years ago. They fired their GM and their head coach with 3 games left in the regular season, and they still had a pretty good showing this year in the playoffs. But if the Knicks did this just because there was a philosophical difference, or because Leon Rose or James Dolan didn't like Thibodeau and there was something personal, then what the heck did you go and hire the guy in the first place? It never makes sense. When you fire these head coaches, someone always comes out and say, he's a really good head coach. We appreciate everything he did for us. We wish him nothing but best in the future. Well, then why did you fire him? I think some of this, now this is just me, I think there was friction between Tibbs and some of the players, and I know the players are going to protect them because that's what pros do. But you had the issue with Cat not playing defense. You had the issue with Rick Brunson, Jalen Brunson's father, maybe clashing with some of the players. Now, again, who are you trying to appease? It's the NBA, guys. It's a players' league. Jalen Brunson's not going anywhere. So let's just say, for instance, that they didn't like that Rick Brunson didn't really get on Jalen if he had a couple turnovers or some bad shot selection, or maybe Thibodeau was afraid to go after him a little because Rick Brunson was in his ear. They're not getting rid of Rick Brunson because then Jalen Brunson's going to be ticked off. They're not going to get rid of Jalen Brunson, a franchise player. They're not. So then who's left? There's one more head on the chopping block. That's the head coach. That's the only thing I can surmise with this. And if it's a knee-jerk reaction and they were thinking ahead, and as Man said, whatever verbal agreement was out there, and that potential candidate decided, forget it, I'm going to stay where I'm at, then shame on the Knicks. I don't need a retread as a head coach. I don't need Mike Brown. I don't need Mike Malone. I don't need Budenholzer. I don't need Steve Nash. I don't need Calipari. I don't need Van Gundy. I don't. Now they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And it's a bad spot to be in right now. It's almost NBA, you can find yourself in purgatory so fast in the NBA. So fast. That's that middle, you're that 7th, that 8th seed. Maybe you get in the playoffs. Maybe you get bounced in the first round. You screwed yourself from draft position. And that's a bad spot. And right now, the outside observers, the national media, are looking at the Knicks. How can you fire this guy that did so well, that brought you back respectability and credibility, and you just jettison, you just push him out the door? Who wants to be, who wants to take over that franchise? Because if you did it to Tibbs, what are you going to do with, Coach A or Coach B, right? So there you have it. CJ chimes in. Q, I don't know if you mentioned this yesterday, but I'm sorry, I don't know if you mentioned this today, but how about last night with McConnell? Do you think he should have been in the game more in the fourth quarter? Listen, that's if you watch that game, McConnell is a gnat. He is a gnat. But when he's on, he produces because the moment's not too big for TJ McConnell. I mentioned McConnell, I think it was last Friday. McConnell had big games and big moments against the Knicks. He's a steady Eddie. He's a pro's pro. He's not going to blow you away. He's going to play both ends of the floor, but he's also fearless. And the problem I had with Halliburton this whole series is his reluctance list to get to the line. I mean, he did not want any part of the basketball last night, guys. He just didn't. Hurt, not hurt. He shied away from the big moment. If you're going to be that franchise player, if you're going to be that star, you can ill afford to shy away. McConnell, he's coming off the bench, but I would have kept him in the game last night too. I would have. You're going to have to live and die with some of these turnovers. All right, fast approaching 5 o'clock, 16 to book, 60 to play with on this Tuesday edition. Middays with Q will take up to 6 o'clock straight up. Lloyd Vance in about 5 or so minutes. NFC North today. We'll go around the league as well. Some news and notes. Keep it locked in. Keep the comments coming as always. And don't forget, you can hashtag MWQ. We are live on TriX57, also on my YouTube channel and X, among many platforms. But as always, we're powered by TriX57. Give them a follow online. Check them out on social media. And certainly lock them in to your browser. Quick timeout, top of the hour. We'll take you up to 6. Lloyd Vance on the NFL on the other side. All right, we're going to punch up Lloyd in a moment. We'll probably step away in a second. But I did want to mention to you guys um, something also. You know how we throw out the questions of the day, right? I mean, the question of the day, Stanley Cup Finals. It's a pretty easy one if you guys think the Panthers are going to close out the Oilers this evening. But I also wanted to throw out something very rare happened, very unique, or I should say, it changed. It changed really the hist. I can't. I don't want to say the history of sports. Uh, I'm trying to think of how I can describe it, and I'm sure you guys that are pretty astute know exactly where I'm going to go. But something happened on this day many, many, many years ago that just actually shocked the world, and it actually happened during a sporting event. So we will dive into that. Kevin C. in Jackson, New Jersey, chiming in on X. Excellent spot with Jonathan Marshall. Hope you guys get to dive into the draft a little more. Q, always like the NBA talk. Going back to your original thoughts and your monologue, Halliburton, very good, not star. That I will agree. But I also think OKC is way too deep and talented. They are. They're just a really good basketball team, and they're a team that I think if you really follow the NBA, you see what they're building. You see that they're putting, um, they draft well. They obviously have budding stars. We already know that um, SGA is a big time player. So we'll get into that a little more. All right, want to take quick time out. We'll set Lloyd up. We'll come back on the other side. We're going to go NFL heavy, and we've got the NFC North to dissect on this Tuesday edition of Middays with Q. All right, welcome back, everyone. 5:06 hour. We'll call it 5:05 on a Tuesday. Why not? As we welcome in our very good friend, Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football. You hear him every Monday night, 8 o'clock on SR 1029 FM. The Game. He's kind enough to join me as we talk a little NFL. We're breaking down the NFC North on this day. We'll get to your comments as well. I think that's yeah. See, I threw out, I thought, a very compelling, you know, sports fact, right? We're talking about what transpired. Well, we'll kick off the segment with this. What happened on this day, 19, was it 93? 1994. What happened on this day, Lloyd Vance?
94?
Yep.
Must have been maybe a Bulls championship of some kind.
31 years ago today, 1994, Game 5 NBA Finals. My Knicks against the Houston Rockets. What transpired during the game? What happened that kept interrupting my game?
Oh, it was OJ.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everybody remembers where they were. That was a Friday night, too. That was a crazy, they kept cutting in the Broncos going all over the place. Yeah, I remember that.
Oh man, that's oh my goodness. I remember that like it was yesterday. I got some thoughts on that, but we'll get into that a little later on. All right, so NFL. Lloyd's going to join us every Tuesday, Thursday. You always hear him during the football season when he co-hosts Back Your Play with myself as we do some lines, gambling, betting, props, and everything. We'll still kind of take it in that direction as we continue to break down the NFC. Today, though, we are looking at the NFC North, which I believe is a compelling division. I will pull up the win totals. I know you've got your notes. You are saturated with notes right there. So let me pull up the NFC North, our win totals, projected win totals. You've got the Bears, the Lions, the Packers, and the Minnesota Vikings. So let's start with the Chicago Bears. Clean up their offense a little bit. We know that second year under Caleb Williams, they're sitting at 8.5. The question is, will Caleb Williams take that next stuff? We always talk about the progressions from year number 1 to year number 2 as a quarterback. Get into Williams first, and where do you project his numbers to be this season?
Well, that's going to be interesting, Q, because, he's trying to be the Bears' first 4,000-yard passer since Eric Kramer and had a pretty good rookie season. But the Achilles heel of this team, obviously, was he was sacked 68 times, the most in the National Football League. They went about trying to fix that offensive line. They trade for Joe Tooney coming over from Kansas City. They signed Drew Dahlman from Atlanta. Jonah Jackson coming over from the Rams. So they're trying to help that line out. And then the playmakers kind of in flux as well. Eberflus is out of the door, and they're bringing that whole new regime with Ben Johnson, and he's trying to change that offense around. Obviously, DJ Moore is still there. They're hoping that Roma Dunzier can step forward, and then Luther Burden as well, rookie coming in. So some of the pieces coming in. A big question for me, though, is DeAndre Swift, is he going to be ready to assume that role and step forward and be the guy? He does have some experience in Johnson's offense from his days with the Lions.
Well, that's the problem, right? I mean, you go out and you bring a decent running back. I think it was underutilized, to be quite honest with you, Swift. And are you going to get the Swift that you saw in Philadelphia? You're going to get the Swift that you saw with the Detroit Lions. I mean, you have to. You got a young quarterback that was running for his life. You had a shaky offensive line, so you got to run the ball a little bit. Like, give him some time to just get his feet wet. And I'm talking about Williams. You alluded to the fact that he was sacked 68 times. They lost almost 500 yards of offense in that regard, right? So I think if anything, that's just too high of a number, man. I'm not. I think they're going to be better, but I don't believe they're going to win 8, 9 games. I don't, because I'm not 100% sold on their offensive line. They open against Minnesota. They have Detroit, Dallas, and Vegas. And by the way, their bye week is extremely, it's very early in the season. It's week 5, Lloyd. So then they've got a portion of the schedule where Green Bay, San Fran, Detroit to close things out. They have Philly on the docket. They have Pittsburgh. They go to Minnesota. Obviously, it's a divisional game. Baltimore and Cincinnati. I just don't see 8, 9 wins in their future.
Yeah, Q. I'm looking at their schedule too. They play 10 playoff teams from last season, so it's pretty stacked schedule for them. Yes, they were a 5-win team, and they're going to come in there with Johnson. He's going to change some things around. But you talk about some of these marquee tough games that they have. Obviously, they have Minnesota and Detroit interdivision at Washington in Week 6. That's a big game. At Baltimore, Week 8. Pittsburgh, as you said, played Philadelphia Week 13. So I just think of the same mind with you there. I think maybe they improved to maybe 7, 8 wins, but they're not going to get over 8.5.
How about the Lions sitting at 10 and a half? This is a team that, look, they had Super Bowl aspirations last year. Washington upset the apple cart. They went in there and they absolutely throttled them. I mean, the defense was the issue last year, especially late. They had the big win against Minnesota. It gave them home field advantage. And then Washington goes in there and scores 45 in the divisional round. Jared Goff, the numbers were somewhat hollow, but they just defensively had no stops. I mean, look, we know they had some injuries as well. I mean, you can't overstate the fact that you have a guy in Hutchinson that gets banged up. Man, I think they take a step back, but I still believe they're the team to beat in that division. So I'm okay. 10 and a half, 11 doesn't seem outlandish. I'll get your initial thoughts on the Lions, and then I'll pull up their schedule.
Q, yeah, last season 15-2. So one
Sure.
of the most dominant teams in the National Football League. They scored 564 points, which is 33 per game. I mean, they had so many laughers last season, but as you said, they kind of had that home stinker, losing to Washington 45-31 in the divisional round. And um, 8-0 on the road as well, 6-0 in the division. So they were just very dominant. So I'm just saying, okay, is the magic kind of wearing off for Dan Campbell? He had a couple great seasons, and you're wondering, with his 2 coordinators leaving, Ben Johnson going to the Bears, and then you have Aaron Glenn going to the Jets. You have John Morton on the offensive side now, and Kelvin Shepard stepping in defensively. Are these guys going to acclimate well to this roster? And then the big question is Jared Goff. It, he played pretty bad in that playoff
He
game, and
did.
and
He
I
did.
kind of agree with you that a step back. Let's look at the games, and we'll see about
Well,
10.5 though.
yeah, let me counter something. So you did mention Ben Johnson. Obviously, you mentioned Aaron Glenn. You're talking about top assistants, ultra aggressive Dan Campbell, right? Which has kind of been the risk to reward factor with Campbell. It's just who he is. I think Goff is an excellent point that you bring up, because the debate is he that top tier, right? That top tier. Now he still has a line, he still has weapons, Gibbs, Amon St. Brown, Williams, Laporta. Okay, fine. They might be an explosive quartet, but defensively, you're going to get Hutchinson back in the fold. But here's the problem. You're not going to have a cakewalk of a schedule. And that's where, are you going to get the really good Jared Goff against bad teams? Or are you going to get the Jared Goff against good teams? Now, they open up on the road against Green Bay. And then they have the Bears at home, and then they go right to Baltimore. So 2 out of 3 tough stretch. And you're going to get tested early on. We'll see where the Bears are by week 2. I mean, that's just how the NFL works, right? Then they have the Browns. They have Cincinnati on the road against Kansas City, Tampa Bay, the Vikings, Washington, the Eagles, the Packers again, the Rams. That's, for a team that won 15-2, that's a pretty daunting task right there when you look at, 8, 9 games into the NFL season.
Yeah, so last season so dominant. I said 8-0 on the road. This season, they're gonna have to play 11 teams that made the playoffs. So they have that bullseye on that back, and everybody's going to want to shut them down because they had a lot of laughers. Let's not forget they put a 50 points on some teams, and a lot of people around the NFL want their revenge. So, and they're going to look at that tape from that playoff game and say, okay, this is what you can do to Jared Goff to kind of shut him down. A big thing with them defensively, though, was they had a lot of injuries last year. Going to get some guys back. I think they can do that 10.5. It's going to be tough, Q, with that tough schedule, but I think maybe they get to 11 wins, but they're just not going to be as dominant as last year in terms of the regular season.
How about this portion of their schedule? On the road against Cincinnati, on the road against Kansas City, at home against Tampa. Might want to play the future over on that one. At home against the Vikings, on the road against Washington, then on the road against the Eagles. That's going to make or break their season. So you're looking at October 5th to November 16th. We're going to see exactly where that team is. That's just, again, that is my thoughts on that one. What's the next team I pulled up? Let's go with the Green Bay Packers. And before we do that, Vince chimes in. All right, well, hold on. We'll get to my Vikings in a second because I know exactly where these wise guys are going. Green Bay Packers at the Darnoldites. Green Bay Packers 9.5. Again, where are we at with Jordan Love? Right. I think there's 2 ways to look at the Packers. Right, 11-6, third place finish, 2024. Is that an indictment on, Jordan Love, the reliability, right? A couple of the bumps and bruises. Here we go. Some of the forced throws, or everyone's healthy. Look out. The Packers could be a very dark horse team coming out of the NFC this year.
Well, the Packers last season were inconsistent, Q. They started out kind of slow, and in the middle they got kind of hot. But down the stretch, they were 2-3 their last 5 games, and against Philadelphia, they were kind of overmatched in that wild card game. Only 1-5 in the division last
Yeah.
season, so it just kind of shows you Love's inconsistency in the big games. Now, in terms of the receiver position, they need somebody to step up. Obviously, they have a young draft pick coming in the door that they're kind of hoping Golden can do some things coming from Texas in the first round. Romeo Dobbs has kind of been inconsistent. Jaden Reed as well inconsistent. Watson's got the knee injury. On the offensive line, they lost Runyon. They're bringing in Banks. He's coming over from San Francisco. Maybe he can help them out. Eldon Jenkins, they got to figure him out in terms of the center position. They got to pay him. Love, he's got to find the way not to have mistakes. Last year,
I feel like he misses a
11,
lot of easy
yeah, he
throws,
did.
Lloyd.
11 interceptions too, Q. So he made bad decisions sometimes in the wrong spots. And you saw the Eagles kind of harass him, and he made some mistakes in terms of fumbles and interceptions. So he's got to play better. And then you got to wonder about Josh Jacobs at the running back position, how much he has left. Defensively, I thought they were pretty solid under the Heffley, who came in there only allowing about 20 points per game. But a lot of question marks on his team.
Yeah, by the way, that wild card loss to the Eagles 22-10. They were down 10-0 in a blink of an eye because, as you mentioned, the turnovers, the fumbles. He had 3 picks in that game. He was sacked a couple times. They ran for over 100, but Barkley went crazy for 119, and Hurts had a pedestrian type of game. They were still in that game, right? And I think if you're a Packers fan, that's a frustrating loss when you're still in the game. And that's a team that started last year 9-3, and then they, defensively they gave up 34 to the Lions. They lost to Minnesota. They lost to the Bears. I know Love didn't play in that last game of the season when they had everything wrapped up. They finished 11-6. They went into the playoffs, as you mentioned, having dropped 3 of 5, not where you want to go. Now you look at their schedule this season, and man, I'll tell you, these teams are going to get tested early. Detroit, Washington, Cleveland, Dallas, they have the bye as well. Week 5, they have Cincinnati. Carolina is going to be a better team. Then they have that I guess you can say crunched in the middle, November 23rd to December. Wow. November 23rd, they have Minnesota at home. They go on the road, Thanksgiving, obviously, at Detroit. They come back. They play the Bears. We don't know where the Bears are going to be. Maybe the Bears are playing spoiler. Maybe the Bears are jockeying for a wild card spot. Denver, that I believe is going to be a better team. Then they have the Bears again. So they play Chicago 2 out of 3 weeks, 2 out of the last 5 weeks. And then, Lloyd, they have Baltimore and Minnesota. So I would be very weary of laying that, any type of number right now and thinking this team might go over 9.5 wins. I just think by virtue of their schedule, they might be an 8, maybe a 9-win team, but I'm not playing the over. No way.
Yeah, you always have faith in LaFleur. He's been a double-digit type win coach since he's been there with Green Bay. But this schedule is daunting. 9 playoff teams they're going against. A key game is going to be Week 10 as well. They host the Eagles, and you're going to see where this roster is. But I still think there's some work to be done with this team. Last year there was 3 teams in this division make the playoffs, but I think they may be the ones that kind of fall off. I'll go with they win 9 games. I don't think they go over that 9.5.
No, either do I. Vince chimes in, fact or fiction, Mr. Vance, the Darnold-less Vikings take a step forward and outright win the division. I mean, that's absurd. The guy, played like an all-pro last year, an MVP candidate. He had 2 stinkers to close out the regular season in a playoff game. They win 14 games, and now you think they're going to throw McCarthy, coming off a very serious injury, by the way. What's the number on...
They're 8.5.
Wow. See, now hold on a second. See, because you know where I'm going with this. 8.5 because they don't have Sling and Sammy Darnold.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun one to watch because last year was that magic carpet ride for the Vikings. 14-3, and they're a wild card team. They had to go on the road. Obviously, the Rams took it to them, and 8-1 at home, 4-2 in division. Their last 5 games, they were 4-1, so they were very hot. But the thing is, I do believe, kind of like you're alluding to, that Darnold caught lightning in a bottle. Who is he? He's now in Seattle, so that's not really a question. But the big thing is J.J. McCarthy, national championship quarterback with Michigan, but he tore his knee up pretty bad. Is he going to be ready to assume that role? Behind him, they bring in Sam Howell. We'll see if he's ready to step in if needed, but they do have Justin Jefferson. They do have Jordan Addison. The offensive line's getting Darrisaw back, one of the best in the league. And you hope Hawkinson has more health and Aaron Jones has another good season in him. So offensively, they can put up some points. Defensively, getting a little older at certain positions, particularly Harrison Smith is getting a little older at that safety position. So 8.5 though seems kind of low for me, Q. I think they can get to 9. I really do.
Vince says, Q, you sound a little emotional about my Vikings take that I strike a nerve. You know what's funny? Vince has the V and it's in purple. So I'm wondering, think about that for a moment. Revelations on the show. This is breaking news. Is it possible he went from being a Pittsburgh fan to being a fraud, fake, fugazi Jacksonville fan, and maybe he is a closet Vikings fan? How else do you explain it? The V and purple. There it is. It's right there. I'm surprised no one else caught this. This guy's been killing me about Darnold for a year plus right now. Now, I will say this about Minnesota. If they are such an enigma of a franchise, right? Because O'Connell's a good head coach. He is. And they've got playmakers. And again, slinging Sammy, slinging it in 2024. Here we go. Go somewhere and cashes it in. How are you going to tell me that J.J. McCarthy, who's an unproven quarterback, who's 22 years of age, who missed the entire rookie campaign due to an injury, he's going to come in and duplicate exactly what Darnold did? I don't see it. I hope the kid does. I hope the kid balls out and plays well. You know, you almost feel bad for Minnesota because they always have these horrible playoff losses throughout their history. You know, get to a Super Bowl eventually. I mean, we saw what they did back in the 70s, but, you know, Vikings fans are so, you know, they're clamoring for a championship right now. And I think they're going to be a wild card contending team. A wild card contending team. I can see them winning 10 games, though. I could maybe 9. 10's a little bit of a stretch. I want to see what this kid can do early on. That schedule's tough.
Yeah, Q. We know 14 was high last season that they got to, and probably 9, 10 is more where they should be at this stage. And McCarthy, as you're saying, big question mark there. He played pretty well in college, but his passing was not the best at times. Sometimes he ran the football, a lot of read option. He had a very good thunder lightning combo at the running back position, and Harbaugh was committed to run.
There you go.
So they're going to have to find that with Wes Phillips, their offense coordinator. They're going to have to run the football. And, Aaron Jones, he played pretty well after Green Bay put him on a scrap heap. We'll see if he had another season in him. They got Jordan Mason coming over as well from San Francisco. So still some talent on this team, but defensively allowed a lot of big plays. So it's going to be fun to see if they can live up to last year's expectations. But I think, 9, 10 wins is probably where they're at.
I think they're kind of spoiled because they got that season out of Darnold. And let's be honest, you know, it's always about the cap ramifications. They were not going to pay him because they didn't believe that Darnold was going to be able to turn around and duplicate that type of success. That's what I believe. So now the kid's going to have an opportunity to showcase his talent. He's got a strong arm. You know, Harbaugh made such a push for him. I think the way I look at it, I think all these teams, as some of you guys already alluded to, are going to just beat the heck out of each other. I want to get to a couple comments. Ryan and Claymont chimes in. Q, do you guys think that the Lions are poised to make a deep run into the playoffs this year? If not, is Campbell's job on the line? Pretty interesting. I mean, where are you at right now with Dan Campbell? We know that risk to reward. We know exactly the type of game that he's going to call. He's always going to go for it. Whether you believe what some of the calls or not, whether they backfire or not, that's just who he is as a head coach.
It's going to be interesting because last season that high water mark, 15 wins and the number one seed. Everybody thought all the road went through there, and they Jaden Daniels just took it to them. Now, obviously, they had a lot of injury issues. I think they're still going to be a good, strong team going to playoffs with a good chance to win the division. But Campbell, the Ford family, I think they're very happy with him in terms of what he's done because let's face it, they were kind of downtrodden, and he really reinvigorated this team. So I don't think he's on a hot seat.
Yeah, but
Um,
did the loss to Washington? Does it kind of you take okay? Wait a second. I mean, you blame the quarterback, yes, but you know he was getting a little desperate. It was uncharacteristic. He was reaching a little bit with some of those fourth down calls. And then remember too, we also saw it in San Francisco a couple years ago where I thought it was the right call. They didn't execute it. I didn't think they went to the right player in that spot, if that makes sense. So I don't know. I think there's some pressure on Campbell this year. I do.
yeah, Kiwi, sometimes overly aggressive, and a lot of fans and media in Detroit are always going to question that. And a big thing, obviously, was the injuries last year. Hopefully, they have better help, particularly at the linebacker position, where I think they had like 6 guys on IR at one time. We talked about Hutchinson earlier,
Yeah.
the key linchpin to that defense. So they're going to be a successful team, and I think they'll be in the playoff mix. And um, we'll see, but they gotta win a home playoff game.
Of
They gotta
course.
win, they gotta get to the conference championship again to kind of live up to all their headlines going into the season.
Can't give up 45 points at home. You just can't do it. Scott chimes in. I want to get to this. This is a good comment. As a whole, feels you guys think the NFC North falls off a bit. Any deep runs from any of them? I'm not 100% sold on Jordan Love. You know how I feel about Jordan Love. I think sometimes he just misses throws that an NFL quarterback should not miss. Minnesota, I mean, look, all jokes aside, I hope the kid plays well. As you mentioned, they caught lightning in a bottle. It could be a year where, let's just say, Jordan Love struggles. McCarthy takes a couple weeks to just find his rhythm. And the Bears just quietly win a couple games and put pressure on a team like Detroit, and makes it a little more interesting. 10 wins should win you the division. But if I handicap it, Detroit is the best team in the division. You take Darnold off of Minnesota. That's why the number is what it is. You're banking on Williams to take the next step, but still not there with Detroit. And then Green Bay is very hit or miss because of the quarterback. So if you back me in a corner, truth serum, I would say that Detroit should win 10, 11 games. Would I be surprised if Chicago was a 500 team? No. Do I see three teams coming out of that division making the playoffs? I'm not ready to say that.
No, I don't see it happening like last year. I think they may have set the record for a division in terms of wins. Because your 11-win team was, what were they, like the sixth or seventh seed
Yeah.
in the conference? So,
Yeah.
and the Vikings are 14-win wild card team. It had to go on the road. I think that may have been a record. So,
Yep.
I say as a whole, they do kind of take a step back, but it's going to be fun to see them battling out at the top of this thing. I still think that Detroit will be there. Minnesota obviously has question marks at quarterback, but I think overall their roster, they can compete for that second spot. Green Bay's got to get that consistency that we talked about, particularly as quarterback, and then defensively. The Bears, they'll be a little better. They'll be better, but it's building. Johnson's going to have to take a little while to build his program there.
Well, and yeah, listen, anytime you got a young quarterback, right? I mean, that's kind of the theme of the NFL now. We're waiting for these quarterbacks to make that jump first to second year. That's why the focus, we talk a lot with the NFC East and Jaden Daniels, because he had such an exceptional rookie campaign. Sky's the limit. If he stubs his toe a little bit, it's okay because of the type of rookie campaign that he had. 5:30 on a Tuesday edition, Middays with Q. Rich Quiñones here, live on TriX 57. Don't forget to get social with us Monday to Friday, 4 to 6. Lloyd Vance joins us every Tuesday, Thursday. I know we'll go a little more heavier with Lloyd's appearances during the NFL season. He also co-hosts Back Your Play with me as well on Amazon Music and Spotify. Man says, why do you call them the Vikings Fugazi? One crazy year, now back to reality. But that's the NFL. That's the NFL. Like, what happens if McCarthy struggles or he retweaks an injury, right? He gets hurt, or Jared Goff gets concussed for a couple weeks, and the Bears are winning a couple games here and there. I mean, the Bears last year, everything goes back to that loss against the Washington Commanders. I mean, it catapulted Washington. It did. I mean, think
Yeah.
about this for a minute. If you go back and you look at the Bears, they had the win to start the season against Tennessee, and Williams did nothing in that game. Then they were 1-2. Then all of a sudden, here we go, hot seat, bench the kid, but they ripped off three straight. They were 4-2 coming off their bye, and they lost that game, and they proceeded to lose 8, 9, 10 games in a row. I mean, that's the story of the NFL. A field goal, a missed field goal, a block, a shank, a Hail Mary, it can change the trajectory of two teams and franchises. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, lesson be learned. They're not going to allow that to happen again. But point is, if you look at that slide, there were games they lost to Washington by 3. They lost to Green Bay by 1. They lost in overtime to Minnesota by 3. They lost to Detroit by 3. They lost to Seattle by 3, 6-3. They were still in those games even after all that nonsense with that Hail Mary against Washington. So that tells me that they're competitive and they play hard, which also leads me to believe they might win a couple games this season they have no business winning. And that maybe puts them over the top as far as their projected win total and gets them to 9.
Yeah, and they're going to be better because Matt Eberflus, a coach that I thought was terrible, and
Horrible.
was on a hot seat before the season started, and it just was downhill. And I think the team, the new aroma in the locker room, Ben Johnson coming there with his playbook and working on Caleb Williams. I just think they're going to be a better team, more positive team, and they're going to probably win these closer games because they'll have smarter decisions. So the Bears are going to be an interesting team to watch. They'll be better, but I think they're just outside looking in terms of playoffs.
All right, around the league for a couple moments, Cincy and defensive end. Of course, we believe they have to sign him. Trey Hendrickson. Apparently, they're resuming contract talks. I mean, again, we know that franchise, along with Cleveland, those Ohio franchises, they're notoriously cheap. But you don't have this kid on the field at the start of the season, and your defense is going to take a substantial hit. Just pay the guy. What are we waiting for here? You know the market value, 17 and a half sacks in 2004. What's he have? Like 30 something odd sacks over 2 seasons. We gave you the defensive numbers when he's out there. The liability when he's not out there. I mean, just what are we doing here for Cincinnati?
Yeah, Cincinnati. Mike Brown, the owner there, Duke Tobin, the GM. You're right. They don't like to pay players, and It they've already paid Higgins. They paid Chase. They paid Burrow. They made Chase wait.
Take care of the
If you
defense.
remember, and now this guy's the linchpin of their defense. Their defense needs a playmaker, and Hendrickson is their guy because Hubbard retired, and there's really not a lot on that defensive line. So they need to get him in, give him a contract similar to what Nick Bosa got, around $33 million or so a season. Make him happy, because a holdout's only going to hurt the franchise because the division's winnable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They can compete with the Ravens as long as they don't go off to 0-3 start again. I think they can compete with them because the Steelers, I think, are kind of downtrodden, and the Browns are the Browns. So they need to pay him that money and then help that defense out. And then they also need to help their first round pick, Shamar Stewart, who they're trying to mess with the contract language. He's already slotted and in terms of what he's going to be paid, but they're trying to mess with his future guaranteed options, and it would be a precedent set in the league. So they got a problem there. So the Bengals need to take a look in the mirror and clean up their front office there.
Monday Marcus on X. You remember Monday Marcus from 1290 The Ticket Days, actually chiming in on a Tuesday. Q, what's the reality that Dak plays 17 games at an all pro level and the Cowboys win at least 12? I, I think they're going to be a bad football team. I really do. I don't like the makeup of the Dallas Cowboys. I know Dak mentioned he wants to win a Super Bowl title and forget about the legacy. The legacy be damned. And uh, Dak Prescott is a likable guy. Dak Prescott is a likable guy. He's been around a long time now. I mean, think about it. He was a fourth round pick back in 2016, pick 135. He put up some big numbers. He's not that clutch quarterback. He's just not. And we talked about the NFC East and we talked about the Dallas Cowboys. I just don't know what their mindset is, right? The philosophy of the Dallas Cowboys. You're not competing with Washington, and you're not going to compete with the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, you're just not. So I can't sit here and tell you, Marcus, to address the comment that he's playing 17 games and he's going to play at a high level. I don't believe this team's winning 7 or 8 games. I think the Dallas Cowboys are set for a very long season. And they have stretches during their season, Lloyd, where they have Denver, Washington, the
Right.
Cardinals, the Raiders, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Lions, the Vikings. They have such a tough stretch. What did they do in the offseason that makes you get up, and throw your hands in the air and say, hey, this is a team that's going to knock off the Philadelphia Eagles? I just don't see it.
Yeah, Q. I don't see it either. And bringing up my research on them, the over under for them 7.5 games. So Vegas is telling you something there in terms of what they think of this team. Yes, Jerry Jones has assembled some pieces. Bringing over George Pickens. They have C.D. Lamb. Um, but there's a couple things that's scary with this in
Defense.
terms of Dak being healthy. They lost Zach Martin. He retires. So that offensive line's kind of in flux. They're trying to see what they got there. They have Terrence Steele, who's kind of struggled at certain times there. Tyler Smith, obviously, is a good all pro player. Um, And then the running back position, what are they doing there? They never really have had much of running games when Ezekiel Elliott kind of fell off a cliff. You have Javonte Williams coming over from Denver. You have Miles Sanders who's landed there. Not much of a rushing attack. And then defensively, they don't want to pay Micah Parsons. They don't want
Right.
to pay him yet. And there's really not a lot of pieces other than him. That defense is boom or bust in terms of that secondary. So uh, I don't think he makes 17. And I think, yeah, they're right around that number. Maybe they get 7, 8 wins.
I don't know. I don't know when that concert is. We talking about next May with Lady Gaga? That the Dallas Cowboys typically win Super Bowls in June and July. Vince chimes in. He spoke of the Browns. I know you hear all the chatter about my guy. Hashtag legendary Sanders pushing for QB1 if he doesn't get first team reps in camp. Can we agree they're screening with him? Apparently, the kid's playing really well. And there's a report that the Browns actually might carry 4 quarterbacks to open up the season.
Yeah, he's looked very well in camp. People that I've talked to, and he's getting the ball out of his hands. He's not holding it like he did in college. And if you look at that roster, it's set up in terms of quarterback for him to kind of step forward. Dylan Gabriel, I always thought he was going to be like a Kellen Moore type, a backup throughout his career. And then Kenny Pickett, I've heard Sanders already passed him.
It
He's
stinks.
not, yeah, he's not a threat at all. And then Joe Flacco's 40 some years old. So I think Sanders is going to get his opportunities in training camp, and then we'll see how he
I,
does in the preseason.
I think the only you laugh here, as Angel would say, Kenny Wilson Pickett. Um, I believe that Joe Flacco is his competition because he's
Yeah,
a
I
college
think
pro. He's been around the block.
right at the top of the pyramid is definitely
Yeah,
him, and he took him to the playoffs. Let's not forget a couple years ago. So yeah, Flacco's probably the guy, and I know somebody would say, what about Watson? Well, Watson with that Achilles injury, I think he's maybe on IR for the majority of the year.
this is the way I see it because there were conflicting reports about Pickett being like the clubhouse leader to win the job. And a couple of reporters that I know up there, they're like, no, he's stinking up the joint. I mean, the same thing that they're telling you. So that means if you're Cleveland and you want to go in this season knowing that you have a proven veteran in Flacco, and you have Sanders, you can kind of play this a couple ways if you're the Browns. You've got Cincinnati, the Ravens, the Packers, the Lions, the Vikings, and then you're on the road against the Steelers. You come home to the Dolphins to start the season. Do you really want to throw out Shador Sanders week 1 against Cincy, week 2 against Baltimore? Week 3 at home against Green Bay. I don't know, week 4 on the road against. You see where I'm going with this? Like, you have to pick and choose your spots. Now, if he ultimately beats out Flacco, then give him the ball to start. I think they have a couple options here. The kid's going to see the field. I mean, listen, the risk to reward, 4th round draft pick, you're not going to cut him. He's going to make the roster when it's all said and done. He's going to have an opportunity to play. But I guess my question to you is, can you envision a scenario where Flacco starts the first couple weeks of the season and maybe, he's taking too many sacks, he's getting banged up on the road against Detroit, they lose 26-3. All of a sudden, hey, here's the spot. We're at home. The Vikings also have a rookie quarterback in McCarthy on the road against us. Here's the spot. I think that's a London game, by the way. So again, I don't know, you pick your poison, but here's a spot. We're going to throw the kid out there. We're going to he's going to start.
Yeah, Q, I could foresee where they let Flacco start this thing, but this is going. Let's not mince words. They're going to be a bad team.
Oh,
you
they
know,
are, but it's
they got
intriguing
Miles
though.
Garrett and, and
Yeah,
and some guys on defense, but I'm saying that because they know he's going to be their future. Why not give him his opportunity? Because I think that Flacco, after a while, he's 40 years old, and we only saw Tom Brady excel at that level, and
those are
and
exceptional
and the
seasons.
offensive line is in flux. They've had some injuries there, some guys leave, and some younger guys coming in are kind of underachieving. So I do think that Flacco will take his hits, and other than Jerry Judy, there's not a lot of playmakers on that offense. So yeah, I think why not give Sanders his opportunity to be a leader of this offense? So I think it will happen.
I'll tell you this. Um, it would have been interesting if Winston was still on the roster. Now, Scott is a diehard Browns fan. So he says, my Browns must start Flacco, run some plays with Sanders, just run heavy to start. We are not built to win right now. If Winston's on the roster, he's starting week one. Jameis
Uh,
Winston. He's not, but I'm just saying he's not.
yeah, I mean, Jameis right now,
Sitting
where
with
is
my
he?
Giants.
Yeah, he's with the Giants, and he's behind Russell Wilson and Jackson Dart. So we'll see in training camp how it plays out, but maybe he does become available. But um, yeah,
Let
I
me let
think
me
you
give
go
you
with
let me
that.
give you these games right now for Cleveland. So I mentioned they
Yep.
open up against Cincinnati. They're on the road against Baltimore. You're not starting Sanders there. At home against Green Bay. I think if they give Flacco a couple weeks, they're not going to give him just 2 weeks. They're going to let it play out. Then you go on the road against Detroit. You have the what's that? The London game against Minnesota, at home against Pittsburgh. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. Let's say they're 1-5, 2-4. Flacco struggling. He can't move around. He's got cement in his cleats. Now you're home against Miami right before New England and then a bye because you're not going to have him start on the road coming out of the bye. So, we like to play this dicey little game of, insert quarterback here. I can see Sanders getting his first start. If it plays out the way I said, week 7 against Miami. Now, if he flat out beats Flacco in training camp, then this is a moot conversation, but that's kind of where I pencil him in.
That would be a good spot for him, Q. It's a home game. Miami's also kind of inconsistent, and Stefanski's on a hot seat there, so he's they're going to need to get wins or some excitement around this team, and why not put Shador Sanders there? And everybody's going to talk about him because he waited to the 5th round and he's supposed to be a first-round pick, etc. So, yeah, I think that could be a good spot for him, but I think it is going to be early in the season where he gets his opportunity because, as I was saying, Flacco's too old. Kenny Pickett, Kenny Two Gloves. He's just never been the guy. Going back to when the Steelers put him out there, and he only had 13 TD passes,
Yeah,
only two
he's
years of
bad. He
starting.
stinks.
So, and Gabriel, he is what he is. He's like a Detmer. He's got a weak arm. He sees the field, but um, he's just not a star in the NFL. So I think Sanders is going to get his chance.
Mike and Kettering chimes in. Love the NFL talk, guys. Love the Browns talk, by the way. Q, you mentioned that Sanders might even not make the roster now. You're saying he might actually start. Ha ha ha. Just trolling you a little bit. But would you consider him a bust if it doesn't pan out from where he was drafted? I've had this conversation. Like, I think it's because there was so much hype. If he goes in the first round, he was projected to be the first quarterback. Well, there was a debate whether it was going to be him or Ward. If he was a top 5, top 10 draft pick and it doesn't work out, then you deem him a bust. But because the kid's draft stock fell so much, if it doesn't pan out, and again, I hate doing this because it's not fair to the player, but it's just speculation. Do you call him a bust because of where he was drafted?
Well, you got to wait 2 to 3 years to see how this thing plays out, and they got a glut of quarterbacks there, but he's a 5th rounder, so that's what you got to judge him on. He was taking a 5th round, which is a day 2 pick or 3 pick, and
But
it's like,
but
all
let,
right,
but let
take
me
a
ask you
flyer
something.
on him.
Like, is he really a fifth rounder?
Well,
I I,
I
I
could do it
know you are.
commercially. We've seen a lot of guys that they reach for, you know what I mean,
Yeah,
where they really a 1st rounder, so
no, that's a fair
that's where
point.
that's where he was taken, and he's going to get his chance. I just thought it was odd that some of the teams passed on him. Q that did, like
Several times.
particularly like the Saints. You know they're the ones that have an egg on their face. In terms of a reach, and guys like Tyler Shuck, what's he going to be? So we'll see. Sanders, I think he's going to get his chances, but being Dion's son and all the hype that came around him, the bullseye is going to be on his back.
I mean, it's going to. It doesn't matter how bad the Browns are. Every Monday, it will be the lead. It'll be Sunday night. It will be the lead. Forget about the Cavaliers. Back in the day with LeBron or the Yankees and the Dallas Cowboys. It's going to be the Browns now. So Howie, you're going to get a lot of play as a Browns fan. Do they have any I don't think they have. Do they have any primetime games? No. Nope. All 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock games, and then 9:30 in London. Huh.
It week 2 against the Ravens, that could get ugly.
But
That's in Baltimore.
that's what I'm saying. Like, that could be the game where he comes in for mop up duty, and then you have the Packers at home. But I don't know, man. It's so hard to read with some of these quarterbacks and what these teams are thinking at the end of the day. No, they don't have any. Thank you. Yeah. No, none whatsoever. And I think that Cincinnati game to end the season, who knows what they're going to do? I don't, maybe that's for the AFC North for Cincinnati, and that's a game where Sanders is going to start, and that game's already been, uh, it's already been flexed out. It is such a crapshoot. It really is, man. I mean, look, I'm seeing these reports that everyone's saying Jackson Dart looks great. Okay, that's fine. That's OTAs, right? And then you get training camp, and then you have preseason. It just doesn't matter at this moment. I need to see on Sundays. Vince going a little fact or fiction. Maybe we got a new segment. I don't know. We like to be evergreen, right? And an original here. Travis Hunter wins Rookie of the Year on offense and defense. No.
No, I think they're going to play him on the offensive side first. That's what everybody's telling me, and they still got Brian Thomas Jr. down there. Now, and the big thing is that the heat's on Trevor Lawrence. He's got to get it done. He's got a new coach coming in there, Liam Cohen, in that new offensive playbook. They'll probably. I always thought Travis Hunter was better on defense.
By the way, he doesn't even. He's got the second shortest odds. Genty has the best odds.
Yeah, I think Genty, you got to say Genty out of the box in terms of the Raiders. They took him very high, and he's going to get a ton of opportunities because he's going to be the lead back from day one there.
Yeah. I'm wondering if Vince had any Steelers questions because that's his team. Rodgers is going to suit up, and I can't find any accurate just yet, some of these player props. But how about this one? This is a very good question. So Kevin, again, from North Jersey, who's a Jets fan, chimes in. He's kind of laughing out loud. Q, who throws for more yardage this year? Aaron Rodgers or Justin Fields?
It's going to be a fun one because Justin Fields brings that aspect of rushing, as well. He's the only Jet right now that's rushed for 1,000 yards in a season. So I'll go with Justin Fields. I think he's going to get his opportunities
I
there.
think so too.
I think Aaron Glenn believes in him, and there's really nobody behind him to push him. Tyrod Taylor's there as a backup, and the thing is, Aaron Rodgers, I think he's going to hand the ball off a lot, and the Steelers are going to run it and play defense, which will open a whole can of worms in terms of him and his ego.
Ah, my goodness. Play the hammer the unders on those games. All right, 5:52. Got to wrap it up. We'll do it again Thursday. Don't forget, you can follow Lloyd on X at Lloyd Vance. You can hear him every Monday at 8 o'clock. Lloyd Vance's Insider Football does a fantastic job on Sports Radio 1029 FM. The Game. He's going to join me Thursday. We'll continue to look around the NFC as well. And then next week, we're really going to start going heavy with player props, projections, and then when we know it, training camp, and we start to do our divisional winners, postseason, playoffs, Super Bowl alike. So we got a lot of NFL to talk about, and we'll do it again on Thursday, Lloyd. Always appreciate you, pal.
All right, Q. Thanks for having me on.
All right, there you have it. Quick timeout. We'll wrap things up on the other side. We got the Q Fecta coming up. Keep it locked in. It is indeed a Tuesday edition of Middays with Q right here on Tracks 57. All right, well, we got a couple to play with. Let me bang through these. Fields legit athlete. I think Fields is a good player. Vince says, I thought Najee Harris was going to be great. Line was trash, so we never had a good year. Good running back, yes, but they had some issues. That's one of the reasons I thought the Rodgers move was not going to be a good one. Michael chimes in with Corporation coming heavy on a Tuesday. My goodness. Who will be more important to their offense, Bo Nix or Jaden Daniels? Definitely Jaden Daniels. I'm very high on Bo Nix. By the way, I would be remiss to bring up Stanley Cup Finals tonight. Panthers close it out. I've been riding the Panthers. I've been skating with the Panthers in South Beach. Here we go. They close it out. Part of my Qfecta picks, even though it's juiced very over minus 163. Oilers, I think, are going to start with Skinner again. I think the Panthers win tonight. I think this has the makings of a 4-1, 4-2 type of game. They celebrate. Panthers repeat. I'm looking forward to that. And I'll give you my thoughts on the NBA tomorrow. But let me get into some of the plays. And oh, by the way, we've had a really nice run with baseball of late. So we're going to go with the Panthers that I mentioned tonight on the ice over the Oilers. I'll take the Phillies. They're throwing out Luzardo minus 185 over the Marlins. The Mets over the Braves plus 115. I saw somewhere that I don't know if it was actually, if it's, it is actually accurate. So the Phillies are benching Castellanos for an appropriate comment. He's not in the lineup tonight against the Miami Marlins for making an appropriate comment on Monday, according to manager Rob Thompson. Wow. I mean, he's a fiery guy. Castellanos is a fiery guy. So that's something that bears worth watching a little bit going forward because, again, trade deadline is right around the corner. And for those that were asking me about the Angel Reese props, apparently these guys from U.S. Stadium, they've been shut down. There's no more props of her potentially missing her first shot, miss prop. So they can't. They got a cease and desist. They're not going to have that prop anymore. They can't use the Angel Reese first shot miss prop bet. And they were on a run. These guys were absolutely scorching. They were red hot. Now, with that being said, do I dare as a bonus play tonight, play the Sky at home hosting the Mystics? Oh, at home they're getting 4.5. I might have to do it. Why not? All right, we got to start wrapping up. Good stuff with the comments. Excellent stuff from Jonathan Marshall on the NBA. Appreciate him chiming in. Lloyd Vance on the NFL tomorrow. Obviously, a little more baseball heavy. We're going to continue with the NFL talk. We'll recap the Stanley Cup Finals. I already told you. I believe tonight the Panthers are just going to outskate the Oilers. Obviously, you would love to get that Game 7 on Friday night, but I like Panthers tonight. Again, puck line minus 140. Oilers situation, the goaltending is way too shaky. So the Panthers have a chance to seal it tonight, win it in 6, and then repeat. And then we can start having the talk of, okay, certain dynasties in sports. And you get a chance to go back-to-back and win it again. That's a hell of a job. And that's something that's, again, it bears worth watching. Again, bears worth watching. Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah. I mean, you got to take those. You had to take that prop. You had to. She was missing every time the first shot. Why not? Cash in. Cash in. Do it. Run with it. You have to. I mean, she had a triple-double. Her line was nice the other day. She had a triple-double. So for the NFL, we're going to do our Monday night plays. We're going to do our Thursday night plays. And obviously we'll do our Friday night, our football show. But we're going to do an extended show, maybe with some college on the weekend. And we will go sports betting, gambling centric. We're going to do a little more outside the box when we come to some player props during the NFL season, also college football as well. Costco is going to join us for that. All right. As I mentioned, I got to start wrapping it up. As always, do not forget to give TriX57 a follow. Social media platforms, it's very, very easy to do. Just log on to TriX57. You can check them out on all social media platforms at TriX57 on Facebook, IG, and X. You can follow me as well on X and formerly Twitter and IG, Rich Q on Q. And of course, Rich Q on the mic. Subscribe, like to the YouTube channel as well. Share the TriX57 page. You guys were fantastic today as we went live. We'll be live now going forward on the platform Monday to Friday from 4 to 6. As I mentioned, excellent stuff from Jonathan Marshall on the NBA. And again, excellent stuff from Lloyd Vance. We don't do that. And by the way, speaking of which, little Kiki, She turned 2 years old on Saturday. We had a very fulfilling beach day that did not tire this dog out. No, you don't have to worry about getting the pet spayed or neutered, in the words of the great late Bob Barker. All right, got to start wrapping it up on this Tuesday edition. As always, I'm Rich Quiñones. We will do it again tomorrow on a Wednesday edition of Middays with Q. Follow along, TriX57 at Rich Q on Q. Special thanks again, Jonathan Marshall, Lloyd Vance. You guys with the comments, you guys have been absolutely fantastic, keeping us engaged, locked in, entertaining. As always, have a good Sports Tuesday. Enjoy the baseball. Enjoy the Stanley Cup Finals. We'll recap it tomorrow. Enjoy the WNBA if you're going to put some plays on the games as well. And as always, I'm Rich Quiñones. Be safe, be sound. We will talk to you tomorrow. Hasta luego, buen día.